Hey, good afternoon. This is Lunch with Laura. I hope that you had a wonderful weekend. And today we have an interesting topic. We're going to be talking about there's no reason to be embarrassed because of who your ex chooses to be. Okay? So there's no reason to be embarrassed by who your ex chooses to be. Okay? And so, a lot of times, so many people feel ashamed and embarrassed by, who their ex is and how they're living their life right now. And sorry, this mosquito is trying to get me. And so, they have a lot of shame and embarrassment around that. And, whether it stems from the choices that your ex chooses to make, whether they're the way that they're parenting your children, to the way they treat you and the way that they talk to you. Sometimes, that can be really hard after a breakup because you don't recognize the person who you used to be married to or who you used to be in relationship with. And sometimes that can really be hard. But one thing is true, okay? You're not responsible for who your ex chooses to be. Sometimes people change and we don't recognize who they are, okay? So if your ex is making choices that are going to lead them to lose good friends and family relationships in their lives, you're not responsible for that, okay? If your ex feels like they've missed out on their youth, and are hanging out and they're drinking and partying and doing all kind of craziness, and they can't get up in the morning for work, that's not your problem. That's not your fault. That's not a reflection of who you are today. If you got married and started a family young, it was his choices as much as yours, right? And so you're not responsible for stealing his youth or not allowing him to have fun or him being trapped. That's a popular thing. Oh, you trapped me, blah, 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 blah. Whatever. You know, he has free will just like you do. All right. And so when you see your ex is rushing into a relationship right now with someone who doesn't have their best interest at heart, or at worst with a person who won't be a positive role model for your kids, and I know this is a real sticking point for a lot of people, okay? You feel like they're not going to be a good parental influence in your kid's life. Yes, you can do what you need to do to protect your kids when they go to visit your ex, whatever that is, but you're not the cause of that situation coming about. So, please don't internalize that. Now, some of the things that you can do to kind of counteract what you think that may be some damaging stuff emotionally to your kids, you can have them to maybe start some counseling. There are some low-cost options for that, whether it's counseling through your church, or hopefully you have coverage through whatever medical coverage that you have, or sometimes too even a school counselor may be very, very helpful to you. So don't discount the folks at school. They go through pretty much the same training as someone who is licensed anywhere else. So sometimes it can be a really good resource, your school counselor. Okay, so there can be your ex can be keeping everything a secret from your kids. Everything's a secret. They don't even know what's going on with their dad. Even though they see their dad every so often, they can't tell you what's going on with him. And so they from that sometimes they feel rejected. Kids, if they don't feel like the parent is open and honest with them, that the parent wants to share their life with them, just to talk about general stuff like how their day was. A lot of times they don't want to talk about that. I know of a young lady who has been divorced probably, oh gosh, 8 years now, and her ex got remarried 4 years ago, hasn't told his kids. He has other kids, hasn't told his kids. It's craziness. That is craziness. You get married and have other children, you don't tell your kids. That's just, I'm still trying to wrap my brain around that one, okay? But that is absolute reality. I've witnessed it with my own eyes, and the mom in that situation is like, okay, I know my ex is remarried, how are my kids going to react when they're going to eventually find out, right? She hasn't told them. She doesn't even really know how to kind of approach that because it's just so crazy. But she's like, my kids are going to be so hurt that their dad didn't tell them that he's remarried and has other children. It's just, it's insane. And he maybe sees them maybe 3 times a year. and he hasn't told them. Ugh. So, for people who have very unusual, crazy situations like that, I just pray a blessing over you, and that God will give you supernatural wisdom and understanding and revelation on how to deal with those types of situations that are going to impact your kids. Oh, thank you. That are going to impact your kids. So, I wish that I had this, uniform, regular stamp answer that I could give you that it's going to be, it's going to solve everything, it can fit every situation. It just isn't. Every situation is different, and every approach to the solution is going to be a little bit different. One thing that I think is common is that you really have to just kind of press in and ask God to give you wisdom in that area. How are your kids going to best relate and accept whatever it is that you have to tell them, about, their dad, at a time where you feel it's appropriate for them to know, and in ways that it is age appropriate for them. So, yeah, some folks I know, some of you ladies are really dealing with some stuff, and I am sensitive to that, and I'm praying for you. I really am. The other thing is, if your ex is treating you like a total enemy, like they're going around telling lies about you after after you guys have broken up, it's like, really, how old are you? Get over it. But all of a sudden you may find some of your friends who you haven't seen in a while start to treat you differently because your ex have told them X, Y, and Z, and they haven't heard your side or given you an opportunity to say anything about it. That is difficult, but again, not your fault. And please, if you had people who you thought were friends who then don't really, ask you how you're doing, or even if they don't want to get in the middle, at least, extend their hand and say, hey, okay, sorry about that. I'm back. Okay, so, if you're a situation where your ex is really being mean-spirited and speaking to you all kind of ways, and, talking to you really mean and awful and saying very hurtful things, now, again, there are things that you can do to stop your ex from being verbally abusive to you. Like, for example, you use some of those apps if you have to communicate about the kids. You don't have to talk to him directly. Just type it in the app or text message or whatever you need to do, so you don't necessarily have to be in contact with him. That's important. And also, too, you can, things that you can do to shield your kids from him talking all bad about you while they're while they're visiting with him. Those other things that you can do to protect your kids. But, and one of those things is if you tell them, you know what, if you're going to keep talking to her, telling the kids all this nonsense, I'm going to put them in counseling. You're going to pay for half of it. Because a lot of times the divorce decree will say, they have to pay for half of the uninsured medical costs. So that's part of medical costs. So make it hit him in the pocketbook, and then see, if that's not a deterrent for him. So sometimes these situations can make you lead and question everything you thought about life and about marriage and about your ability to make good choices, because you're just embarrassed to hell about how he's acting, and so just know it's really not your fault. Some people change, they're not the person that you met 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 5 years ago. They're not the person that you even divorced at the time that you divorced them. They're different. And that's on them. That's their walk. That's something that they have to deal with. And it's not your fault. So resist the temptation to attach shame and humiliation and embarrassment because of your ex acting a fool. Okay? That's just a bottom line. Resist that. Resist it. It's not anything intended for you to carry with you. He's not, you're not a couple anymore, and it's not your fault. So if you have kids with your ex, pray for them to become the best parent and the best provider that they can be for your kids. Even if you didn't have children with them, but your ex is leading a life that's, going downhill fast, still pray for them that they would have insight and strength and wisdom to turn their life around so they can fulfill the things that they were born to do. If you're not at a place yet where you can pray for them, try not to meditate day and night on how your ex is driving you crazy. Okay, That will only attack your physical and mental health before it ever touches them. All right? So why make yourself sick over the choices that they're making? So that's just what I really want to emphasize to you. So always take the high road. Do what you need to do to protect you and your kids. If he's, being mean to you and, talking bad about you in front of the kids, do what you need to do. But, focus on your own plans and moving forward with your own life, okay? Recognize that you can't change who he is. And you can be the example of how not to be bitter and stuck in the past for both your ex and your kids. Mostly for your kids, If your ex, is able to get that from you, great. So keep your head up and keep moving, and just pray for him. And prayers, they're powerful, and you'd be surprised. 2 weeks into it, 3 weeks into it, you start to see a change for the better. And these mosquitoes are driving me crazy. So I'm going to end this video. I hope you guys had a wonderful weekend. Thank you for spending a little bit of your lunch with me. This is Lunch with Laura, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care.